Hey guys, welcome back to the ZonCom podcast. This is your host, as always, Andrew Erickson. So I want to say, first of all, I want to apologize. We have not had any kind of fresh material in the last few weeks, and that is because we've had some major life things happen. Everything is good. We're going to be announcing very, very soon in a series about what has happened recently in the business. So it's all good stuff. We're very excited about, but it has kept us very busy with everything that we're doing. We also ended up moving house too this last month, and we kind of took like a week or two off for vacation too. So we didn't really have a lot of time to make new content for you. But that's maybe why the room might sound a little bit different. The recording might be a little bit different because we are in a new office. So I haven't had the chance to get my room to sound beautiful yet. But that doesn't matter because we have some awesome new content for you today that I'm excited about, and I'm going to do this one solo. So one thing that's kind of fun, I'll go ahead and jump right into it. I used to write blogs, not a great writer, much better podcaster. I like just talking rather than writing. But there's a few things before I had the podcast, I wrote a few blogs, and I kind of thought it'd be fun to kind of revisit some of these blogs. These blogs are hosted currently at andrewknowsamazon.com. There's not a lot of them. There's a few, but they're kind of fun. I'm gonna kind of rehash them here and kind of read them, but also add some of my new stuff in there too. And this one we're going to be talking about is a blog that I wrote called The Road to Personal Wealth. The Road to Personal Wealth and Charity. One thing, I am a major planner. I'm like weirdly obsessed with like my calendar and like getting things planned and kind of like looking a year and 3 years and 20 years and 100 years out in the future. I just like it. I'm not saying that you should do it or you have to do it or you have to do that to be successful. I just personally like it. I just like thinking about the future. And I'm also a money nerd. And I like to think about what we can do with money and what money can do to us, right? Now, being a money nerd isn't about greed. I try to live a very generous, giving lifestyle. And I try not to, I have a big policy, never lie, cheat, and steal to make money. I just like learning and using money in ways that kind of change my life and change my family's life and change the circumstances of people around me. So that's kind of what I consider to be a money nerd, right? Doing spreadsheets and stuff, not about like, I got to get more, but I just want to learn more, right? Got to learn more. I've agreed for knowledge. So it's all about being efficient with your spending and your investing. And I want to become very wealthy. And I also want to become very charitable. My money nerd plan to personal wealth and charity is to get, okay, so here's it's like a 7-step process. Okay. And I'm going to spoil it and tell you all 7 steps right now. And then we're going to go into it and talk about each step a little bit. So my road to wealth and charity is first to get an education, then to become debt-free, then to achieve what I call cruise control retirement. And I'll explain what that means later. Then I want to build a cash flowing business. Then I want to build a disruptive business. And finally, I'd like to become a philanthropist. Philanthropy means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But this is giving back, building society, helping people, and doing that with money and time and resources, and doing it in a very organized, kind of big way is how I consider philanthropy. It's not just about being rich. It's not just about giving. It's about doing kind of both together or kind of a combination, a beautiful cocktail of resources, right? That's philanthropy in my opinion. Step 1, get an education. Okay, there are some people in this space that are very anti-formal education. I totally understand why. I totally get it. Yes, okay. Yes, there are some major issues with universities. Yes, there are some major issues with the public school system. I am a very biased person because both my mother and father are both professors. My dad's a business professor. He's been on this podcast several times. If you want to search for his episodes on economics as related to private label Amazon sellers, you can just search for Dr. Erickson, doctor because he has a PhD, he's a professor. My mom is a professor of nursing. And of course, my wife is also a teacher, but in the public schools. There are some major issues with public education. But in general, an education is almost always money well spent. going to a good, affordable college is one of the best investments you can possibly make. There's a lot of studies that have been published on this that show a bachelor's degree basically doubles your income, right? And of course you could say, well, that's because only rich people go to school, or that's because only people who can sit in a stupid classroom for 4 years are the kind of people who also do well. Yeah, maybe. But there have been some studies where they kind of do sort of like a double blind study, right? Where they randomly assign some people to universities and not universities, and you still see that signal coming through. So I think formal education, getting a proper bachelor's degree from a good, affordable university is really, really important. And the big thing is it's a very safe investment. No one can ever repo your education. No one can come and steal that knowledge out of your head. And no one can ever, you can lose a house, you can lose a car, you can lose a business, you can lose a spouse, you can lose all these different things, but you can't lose knowledge, right? As long as you're healthy, you can't lose your knowledge and your skill and your education. So this step should take, assuming we're starting at that 18 mark, this should take 4 to 6 years to get a formal education. Step 2 to becoming wealthy and philanthropic is to get a good job, come out of school, get a good, boring-ish job, save your money, and become debt-free. So focusing on becoming debt-free, that's getting rid of your consumer debt. That's a big one. I'm a big believer in not using consumer debt. And then getting rid of your education debt, and hopefully getting rid of car loans, consumer debt, and all those different things. Debt is an anchor that weighs you down. It stops you from doing things like taking time off to start a business or taking a risk later on, right? So we want to be we want to start conservative and go more and more risky meaning in the high risk, high reward kind of risk, right? So debt is these are all financial liabilities. Debt is that stop you from taking more aggressive actions later. And part of getting on debt involves saving for an emergency fund so that you will stay out of debt. That is kind of like a 3 to 6 months emergency fund, and emergency fund 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So your mortgage and your monthly expenses and all that different stuff. Also, I think you should do that in your business. Now, there are exceptions to this. There is good debt, even though some people think there is no such thing as good debt. I think mortgages are good debts. And then there are times when leveraging debt in your business can be very effective. You just want to be very careful about that. But before we get there, before we get into this whole we're going to leverage so much into our business, I want to make sure I get rid of my consumer debt and my student debt first. Okay, so a big resource for this that helps a lot is Dave Ramsey. I love him. He has a podcast, he has a class, he has all sorts of stuff. I love Dave Ramsey if you want to check that out. So the cool thing too is that when you focus on getting rid of your debt as a family, Dave Ramsey says this, the average family gets out of debt in 8 months. Okay, so it's less than a year, right? That's when you focus on getting rid of your consumer debt, getting rid of your student debt, getting rid of all these different debts like that. So this isn't a 20-year sentence to get out of debt. This is a 8-month. I'll even be generous and say this is going to take 1 to 3 years to do this. The next step on the road to wealth and philanthropy is to achieve what I call cruise control retirement. Okay, cruise control, or some people call it coast retirement. So that is when you've saved enough that if you were never to add anything else to retirement in this case is usually a 401k or a pension, or real estate also works too, kind of like the long-term like tax advantage accounts that you don't touch until you're in your 60s or 70s or whatever. That's the kind of retirement savings I'm talking about. If you get to the point where if you have it set up now, you never have to add money to it to achieve a standard lifestyle when you're old. Okay, I'll unpack that a little bit. So if you were still able to retire on a median American lifestyle in your 60s, and I'm going to define a median American income is $60,000. Okay, that might sound like not a lot to some people. It might sound like a lot to other people, right? But $60,000 is that's about average, meaning the median lifestyle in America. So to get that, you need to have about $1 million, right? So when you are in your like late 60s or late 60s, whatever, you have about $1 million. $1 million will give you a $60,000 a year income. And I might say, well, $1 million tomorrow or 40 years from now isn't worth as much today. Yeah, I'm talking about $1 million adjusted for inflation. So inflation basically halves the value of money every 30 years or so. So if you're currently 30, like me, 33, then 30 years from now, the money will be worth half as much. So to achieve $1 million net worth when I'm 60, I need to actually have $2 million. That's $1 million in today's money. And of course, the median American income will also double, hopefully more than doubles. Hopefully we increase our standard of living. But generally, I want to just be able to achieve that kind of like the checkbox, that conservative, like I'm good. I can pay for myself and my family when I get to that ripe old age where I can't work anymore. So to achieve this, you have about $1 million. If you have $80,000 invested in your accounts, by the time you're 30, it's 80,000. By the time you're 30, you will have between $1 million and $1.2 million in today's money at age 66. I did that math. I assumed a 10% yield, a 10% return with a 2% inflation, so 8% real return. Okay. Anyways, probably saying too many numbers, so don't worry about it. The big thing here is put it into some investment calculator. How much money do I need today, or how much money do I need 5 years from now, so that it will grow out to $1 million in today's money when I'm in my late 60s. And so for me, the great thing about this is that the power of compound interest is on your side. You can retire with dignity no matter how much you save in the future if you have enough today. I like to call this cruise control retirement, because all you have to do is kind of like, you got to accelerate up to that, 70 miles an hour on the freeway, and then just hit cruise control and kind of just relax, right? Just relax. And I'm talking about, freeway out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Arizona, where it's kind of just open desert, or New Mexico, where I'm from. It's open desert, hit cruise control. You got to keep an eye on the road, but you don't really have to do a whole lot of like intense driving, accelerating and stuff like that. You just got to like keep an eye on the road and just keep on going straight, right? If you're in New Mexico, you just keep driving straight for hours and hours and hours. And if you're on cruise control retirement, just keep your assets appreciating for decades and decades, right? This thing, actually, if you do this early, if you focus on this in your 20s or early 30s, it might only take you a few years to accomplish. And again, I know this sometimes might not apply to everybody. I'm sure it won't apply to everybody, but I'm just saying these are this is my plan. And I think this is very applicable to other people. But I think this part should take 5 to 10 years to accomplish. And one thing I kind of got really excited when I was 26, 27. I think I just moved to California. I had saved, I luckily I lived like a college kid. I was making an engineering income, like 60s, low 70s. So it was good, but it wasn't like, oh my God, money. It was good, right? And I lived like a college kid. I had $300 a month rent, and I made all my food, and I saved half my money, and I saved up about $70,000, $60,000 in my 401ks by the time I was 26, 27. I did the math. I said, okay, I'm good. $60,000. That'll make me a millionaire by the time I'm in my late 60s. So that should take you anywhere from 5 to 10 years to accomplish. Step number 4, build a business. Now we're talking a little bit more we're a little bit more simpatico with this audience, right? Let's build a business. Let's create a cash flow business, a business that will make an income quickly meaning 6, 12 months, or maybe not say income, maybe even profitable. It's profitable on paper, at least. Not some like kind of like hope and a dream. Maybe there's a 1 in 1,000 chance this thing might become a $1 billion company. This is like, there is an 80% chance that this thing will be profitable 8 months from now, right? That kind of stuff. Traditional day jobs are great for earning regular income, but they have limits. It's nearly impossible to scale a day job up. The best you can hope for is a 5% performance raise every year. That is why starting a business is critical to becoming very wealthy. According to the book Millionaire Next Door, which I love that book, I think it's written like the mid 90s. It's a little dated, a little bit, but the concepts are still there. They still hold true. But in that book, the top occupation of American millionaires are doctors engineers, and business owners. And actually, surprisingly, teachers actually come in like number 4 on that list. So doctors, engineers, and business owners, right? And so if you look at people who are worth over $10 million, almost all of them are business owners. Almost all. And you might say, well, that guy's a doctor. He might have actually owned his own practice, or he might have built a product that was monetized into a business, right? So that is some type of hybrid. But most of those people who have high net worth, they are business owners. They're people who take risks and invest. Find a way to create a business that can be scaled up and creates a very good income with minimal work. Tim Ferriss, another one of my favorite authors, wrote in the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, and he calls this business a muse. A muse is like the old Greek, I don't know, it was like a little spirit, Greek mythology spirit. This muse kind of gives you inspiration, gives you creativity, gives you the freedom to do things you want to do because you have that cash flowing business. And that is exactly what we talk about and how what we focus on in this Amazon community is building these businesses that do become profitable and do become a cash flowing business and do allow you to afford the lifestyle that you want. And it allows you to pursue grander ambitions if that is what you are ambitious for. This should take 3 to 10 years to build a cash flowing business. Step number 5. Okay, now this is where we start like really elevating quite a bit. I want to create a disruptive technology business. This is a business that will completely change the way a sector of the economy works and thinks. Usually this is done with some sort of information technology, but can be done with other traditional, well-organized business systems. For example, Uber for taxis, Amazon for online retail, and Zillow for real estate, Salesforce for sales teams, right? There's usually a tech component. Doesn't always have to be a tech component, but usually something in that realm. There's many ways to do this that aren't as large as those billion-dollar companies, but you can focus on certain things in the economy, in the world, in the way that we do things that are very disruptive in a small niche. For example, maybe you disrupt the way second graders learn cursive, and you do this with an iPad app or help people find the best lawyers using a special Yelp-like app, or producing very cheap modular 3D printed homes. Or you build some sort of system where you can create homes extremely cheaply and you can build it up so that you make housing that much cheaper and get that many more people into homes. And that you can fight homelessness that way. Something like that, where you're disrupting the world in a good way, disrupting in a way you're providing extreme amount of value in a special way. Whatever it is, needs to be risky and needs to have the potential to change the way that part of an economy works. Disruption is where you make a difference in the economic world and make serious money. When you provide serious value, you receive serious money. This is hard to predict how long it will take. It'll take at least 5 years. But the maximum is it can take a lifetime or an entire career to make this happen. So it's definitely not like guaranteed, but this is the thing that this is kind of the big, like, now that we have the muse, now that we have the cash flow, now we kind of have those basic incomes, those basic needs met. How do we then go on to create disruption in the economy? Lastly, step 6 out of 6, philanthropy. So now you've built this amazing, beautiful, amazing, disruptive business. You've made a really good income, a very disproportionate income to your circumstances. And now you become a philanthropist. Figure out how much you need for a good, meaningful lifestyle consumption level, then figure out a way to give the rest away. Giving away the rest might include inheritance so you can create generational wealth. Giving enough to each child or grandchild so that they can short circuit the first few years of this plan. Maybe they just go right into cash flow instead of having to spend all this time and energy paying off debt and everything else. You can accomplish a lot with a little time and a decent amount of money. You could start a school or help poor kids. You could build a resource for environmental protection, such as a wing of a zoo or a foundation investment for an organization. You could focus your money on curing diseases. Look at the tech billionaires like Bill Gates, who have pledged 99% of their wealth to charity. This is the best way to really achieve an impact on the world for the better. I guess Bill Gates is kind of controversial to some people, but I really respect him because he has his stated goal, at least, is to help the world. And he stepped away from his tech stuff, and he's really just dedicating his wealth to changing the world in a philanthropic way. And a lot of people do this too. Bill Gates is arguably the most charitable person in human history. Arguably, there's two arguments why he's not. One is, depends on how you measure inflation. Dale Carnegie might have beat him depending on what inflation rate was. That's one argument. The second argument is that he might not be the most charitable because he convinced Warren Buffett, who's also one of the richest people ever, to match Bill Gates dollar for dollar. And because of that, they together, maybe Warren is tied for Bill Gates. He's not the most charitable. But because of that, he has this ability to change the world with his wealth. And so these are my steps to personal wealth and charity. They aren't meant to be taken completely one by one. Focusing on one while slightly working on another is okay to do. For example, contributing to a 401k while get your employer match is okay while you're still paying off debt. Also, working on some small disruptive businesses while you're still kind of like growing and expanding your cash flow business, those are fine. Donating a few $100s every year to charity along the way is a good idea too. However, you should focus on making a disruptive company while you're you should not focus on building a disruptive company while you're still paying off debt. Do you agree? Do you think these are good steps? Do you think I should tweak them? I would love to hear your feedback. If you want to just email me, I'd love to hear what you guys think. My email is andrew@andrewknowsamazon.com. You can also just leave a comment on this if you go to zonconpodcast.com, you'll find this episode and you can leave a comment. And I'd love to hear what you guys think of this road to wealth and charity. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this content. I always try to bring as much as I can and share as much with you guys as much as possible. And I always try to do that for free. So for you, everything's free. Take it all, use it. Please grow this world, grow your business, get everything bigger and better. The only thing that we ask from you is that you possibly leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps people find us. I am going to read one of my favorite reviews here. We have a VPug. That's the person's name, VPug, I guess. Left a review. Amazon Gold right here. I can't think of a better way to learn in the ins and outs of Amazon than through a podcast like this. I'm just learning about the ways of Amazon and if being a seller is as viable option for me. Wow, is this show informative? Andrew is great. His fantastic guest, tremendous insights, and he really gets to the point on topics. I love hearing the real life stories from Andrew's guests. Yes, thank you, VPug. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're finding value. If you found value as well, please go to iTunes and leave us a review.